Hi there, my name is Irene Glass, and this workshop is on building a sustainable daily spiritual practice. If you would like a copy of the notes, please email me at glasswitchcottage@gmail.com. Also, this class is going to include some meditation and some reflection, so please have a journal handy so that you can write down your experiences. So, let's talk about building a sustainable practice, something we can do every day that really helps nourish us. And I think it's important to first recognize that we are kind of on the worst merry-go-round ever in terms of our lifestyle. It is so easy to put our own needs last. We live in a culture that demands almost constant attention, chronically overworks us, and encourages us to value ourselves based on accomplishments and resource hoarding. When the measure of value we have been taught is completely based on external accomplishments, it's easy to ignore or delay work on our inner selves. Trying to balance out personal development against constant stimulation is already difficult. So if you then add in parenting or complex interpersonal relationships, or both, it's a recipe for self-neglect. Our spiritual practices don't blow up our phones or show up on our doorsteps or demand that we help them with an overdue homework assignment in the middle of the night. They tend to fall behind in the face of that onslaught as a result. That said, we've all chosen to engage with a spiritual path that emphasizes inner work. It means that on some level, we are deeply aware of the need for it. Paganism is not a path for people who like to be spoon-fed. There's immense onus on practitioners to grow under their own guidance. Our spirituality comes with homework, right? Reading, learning divinatory systems, practicing spellcraft and ritual arts, shadow work, and somehow, despite being forced to ride a noisy, uncomfortable, needy cultural merry-go-round, we've chosen a path of deep work and connection. This is good. We are instinctively reaching for more intense spiritual experiences. Understanding that impulse and the well it springs from can help fuel our spiritual practices in a more direct way. So, one of the most useful phrases I've learned around magic is, "That which is fed increases." Our personal spiritual practices shape the kind of witches we become. This means that the contents of a practice support a particular outcome. Most witches, after the first few years, specialize in something. We become divinators, hedge witches, ritualists, astrologers, teachers, magicians, all sorts of things. Moreover, practicing spiritual connection creates more spiritual connection. One of the phrases my mother likes to use is, "Nothing creates proximity like proximity." Now, that phrase was originally aimed at my teenage self when I tried to shut myself in my bedroom with a romantic partner, but the logic is sound. By cultivating closeness with the powers that be or our spiritual connection, we create stronger ties. By regularly engaging with spiritual practice, we build the muscles used for magic in its many forms. We become more proficient as practitioners. If we are dedicants, our relationships with the powers we serve become stronger. We are better able to choose paths that support our individual true north, our natural alignment. As I'm fond of telling my students, I am not good at rituals and magic because I have some unusual natural ability. I'm good at them because I've had a lot of practice. One of the ministers I work with regularly has a saying that I love. Practice doesn't make perfect, but it does tend to make permanent. Creating and then practicing, and sometimes screwing up, changing, or otherwise being human about a particular spiritual form, means that over time, that form becomes permanent. The trajectory of growth and development has long-term support. We transform ourselves through our practices. We create the witches we become. So bearing that in mind, our first step needs to be finding our spiritual anchor. Now, I work in the fitness industry as a yoga teacher, which means that I pay a lot of attention to the reasons people do things that are difficult. There are a few different anchors that cause someone to stick to a physical practice, like yoga or running. For most people, knowing something is good for you is simply not enough. We all know lots of things that are good for us that we do not do. That knowledge is not enough to change behavior. So we have to look a little deeper. We all have an anchor for spiritual practice. It's a big why that keeps us going. The thing is, most of us don't actually know what the kernel is behind the impulse. We haven't spent a lot of time teasing apart the threads of why we bother with witchcraft in the first place. Because I like it? Because my friends do it? Because it's interesting? These are all surface motivations. They don't run deep enough to justify the kind of sustained effort witchcraft necessitates. In order to root a personal spiritual practice in a way that will sustain it, we need to understand why we do it and what we're trying to accomplish. We're going to approach figuring out the big why with 2 exercises. One uses linear thinking, and one is a piece of journey work. So we're going to go with linear thought first, and this is a journaling exercise. So I'd like you to please get out your journal and something to write with. In your journal, I would like you to answer a question. Why do you want to be a witch? And I'd like you to hit pause on this video to give you a couple minutes to write down your answers. Try to go deep here. Why are you doing this? Try not to self-edit or judge the reasons that come up. They don't need to be rational or logical. Why do you want to be a witch? Hit pause and write down your answer. Okay, next question. Why is that important to you? Again, hit pause and write down the answer to your question. Last question. Imagine I'm an annoying 5-year-old asking you this. Yes, but why? Hit pause, write down the answer to your question. So, look at the answer to that last question and think about your big why. You may be able to turn that into a value statement or a specific goal. For example, my big why is so I can be strong enough to never get hurt again. My big why isn't logical or realistic, but it doesn't need to be. It's my core drive, my reason for pursuing witchcraft. And it means that my personal practice needs to be about building strength. Our big whys contain the pattern our personal practices need to take in order for them to sustain. Within the magical system I teach, Blackfeather, we work with a specific archetype of the self regularly, the empowered witch self. So we're going to do a piece of journey work that takes us to the mirror. Your mirror is a lens in which to see yourself in many ways. Today we're going to be focusing on seeing ourselves as the empowered witches we are meant to be. Guided meditation, visualization, and journey work can be challenging. They require a strong imagination, and many of us have had our imaginations squished out of us at some point. If journey work is challenging for you, remember that you can repeat this journey later. You can just repeat this section as many times as you'd like to. I invite you to make yourself comfortable for a little bit of guided meditation. So find a nice way to allow your body to be relaxed but still alert. A comfortable seated position, maybe leaning against some cushions. So in this guided journey to the mirror, I'd like to begin by inviting you to close your eyes. Allow your breath to deepen and lengthen. Consciously relax your body. Start at the very top of your head and begin working your way down your neck and shoulders. Relax your chest and your back. Relax your lower back and your hips. Relax your legs all the way down to your toes. And relax your arms all the way down to your fingertips. Draw your awareness to your heart center. Notice a glow radiating from your heart. This is your life force, raw prana or chi, the magic that animates you and all living things. Become aware of the bright glow of life within you. You might see or sense that energy pulsing in time with your heartbeat. Your heart center is part of a web of life extending in all directions. Become aware of the lines of energy connecting you to other life. These lines stretch everywhere, above, below, out to either side, and the pathways hum with creation energy, the raw force of life. Allow some of the energy from the web to flow toward you. Let that life energy replenish your heart center, then expand to heal and recharge any areas of your body that need it. Notice a nexus of that vibrant energy forming in front of you. It begins to take the shape of a ring of flame around a center well of darkness. As you watch, the ring begins to expand, moving into a more oblong shape. The dark center takes on a metallic sheen, and you realize that a mirror is taking shape before you. Right now, it shows nothing. When the mirror has finished forming, set an intention to see your empowered witch self. Simply tell the mirror that is what you wish to see and touch the surface of the glass. The glass will ripple and then show you what you have requested. Look at your reflection. Notice how your witch self stands, how they carry themselves. Notice the differences and the similarities to yourself right now. Ask your reflection, what is your greatest strength? Ask your reflection, how do you feed your power? Look one last time at your empowered witch reflection. Then touch the surface of the mirror to clear it. It will ripple, then become blank once more. The fiery frame surrounding the mirror will begin to shrink. The prana that formed the mirror dissolving back into the web of life surrounding you. Begin to deepen and lengthen your breath. Wiggle your fingers and your toes. Roll your shoulders and gently shift around. Reconnect to your body, to this space, to this time. Take a deep breath in. Let it out on a sigh. Whenever you are ready, gently open your eyes. Please record your experiences in your journal. The 2 questions you asked your empowered witch self are, what is your greatest strength? And how do you feed your power? Take a moment to record your experiences. So let's start putting it together. Between the journaling exercise and the journey, you should have or be able to develop a sense of what your daily practice needs to be anchored to. If your big why is about power or strength, your daily practice needs to include strengthening practices. If your big why is about connection or loneliness, your practice needs to include connection practices. Our whys show us where we need to grow. So, when we're designing a practice, we need to consider one more anchor, and it's pleasure. No matter how motivated we are, no matter how strong that big why is, or how well we understand it, if our spiritual practice doesn't contain elements that are pleasurable, we just won't do it. This is one of the anchors from the fitness world that applies here. Your daily practice needs to feel good, at least in part. It should include an activity or action that you would do anyway, simply because you like it. So, think about what aspects of practicing magic bring you the most pleasure. What do you genuinely enjoy? Not what's useful or productive, what feels good. So please stand up if standing is comfortable for you. And find a nice even stance on your feet. Now, think of someone you adore, someone who brings you joy to be around. Get them really clear in your imagination. Notice what your body is doing right now. How did your weight shift? What physical sensations are you experiencing? Okay, now, think about someone you can't stand, someone who drives you crazy, whose company you avoid. And again, let them get really clear in your imagination. Again, notice what your body is doing. So note physical sensations, changes in stance, just the way you feel right now. All right, let that visualization go. So, I've made a list of ritual components. So it would be useful here to have your journal handy, maybe in one hand and your pen in the other. I'm going to read these components aloud one by one. When you feel your body react with pleasure, that first set of signals from thinking about someone we love, I'd like you to write down that component. You're also welcome to add to this list as we go if I've missed a practice that you love. Okay, so once again, nice and stable, find a firm stance. Here we go. Incense. Anointing with oils. Lighting candles. Self-guided journeying. Contemplation. Reading inspirational texts. Listening to music. Litanies and invocations. Dance. Playing an instrument. Mindfulness meditation. Divination practice. Singing chants. Silent or soft prayer. Listening to guided meditations. Singing bowls and bells. Gratitude practice. All right, I invite you to get comfortable again. Relax. So let's talk about the daily practice Lego bin. There is an abundance of choice when it comes to designing a daily practice. As with all things witchcraft, there are as many ways of performing a daily practice as there are witches. I'm going to list some components of daily practice, but this list is by no means complete or comprehensive. It's also not required. So I love the analogy of a box of Legos. You can build many things with them, and how many of the Legos you use is totally up to you. So here are some things that are in your Lego bin that you could use if you'd like. So 1, entrance into holy time. It's good to have a marker of some sort that denotes the shift from normal workaday concerns to holy time or spiritual time. This marker can take many forms. One thing I find particularly useful is the use of sensory triggers. For example, entrance into holy time could be marked with lighting a particular kind of incense you only use for magical or ritual work. It could be the sound of a bell, a singing bowl, or playing a particular recording in the background. It could be anointing yourself with an oil blend that is only used for spiritual work. Triggers work best when the triggering agent is only used for specific situations, so daily practice, spell casting, or ritual work. Another component? Candle lighting. The effect of flame on the human mind is a powerful one. During this era of artificial light, candlelight returns us to a more primal place. It wakes the liminal and often invokes a feeling of comfort. Moreover, candles can be dedicated to particular powers we're working with. So, a witch could have a candle for their ancestors, a candle for the deities they're working with, and a candle for the current piece of spellcraft that they're working on. Another component is offerings. Many people include a daily, weekly, or otherwise timed offering to the powers they work with. This offering can range from a small cup or shot glass of clean, clear water to specific wines or liquors to incense to more solid offerings. For example, I regularly make offerings of amber chips to Freya. When you are making an offering, be sure to specify who it is for and why. Another option is prayer. Prayer is a way of speaking to the divine, of making a presentation to the powers that be. Prayer can vary in terms of content, and in Western-based theology, the acronym ACTS is frequently used. Adoration, litanies of praise or offerings of love. Confession, the acknowledgement of limitations, venting of frustrations and failures. Thanksgiving, expressions of gratitude. And supplication, praying for the needs of others and ourselves. So, acts. Now, prayer can also take many forms. Free-form spoken or silent narrative. Litanies, which I love. They're the recitation of a memorized or printed or read prayer. Japa, which is repetitive prayer using a mala or other prayer beads. A word or phrase or name is spoken, aloud or silently for each bead. It's somewhat similar to a rosary. Visualization, prayer through images, imagining someone hale and well, visualizing your ancestors full of light and grace, or imagining love and grace pouring into the earth. Another component is meditation or journey work. So if prayer is speaking to the powers, then meditation is listening. Meditation can also take many forms. So guided meditation is listening and imagining along with a supplied narrative. If you're just getting started on meditation and are interested in developing the skills for journey work, this can be a great option. Insight Meditation is a free app that includes lots of guided meditations, and it's a really good starting point. Mindfulness meditation is becoming fully present to ourselves and learning to observe and release thoughts as they occur. Spiritual meditation and journeying is seeking a deeper connection with the powers you serve, embracing the silence around you and then reaching through it for connection, or visualizing a journey to the powers you serve or are working with. Movement meditation. This is gentle motion where the movement guides you into a meditative state of mind. Yoga, Qigong, walking, and dancing are all good examples. Another option is work, an area of your life you are currently developing. This can be divination practice, so drawing a tarot card, a rune, an ogham, whatever sortilege system you're using. It can be self-blessing. It can be reading from a book you're studying, reinforcing a spell. Some require repetition of varying types. Energy work, journaling, lots of options here. And then one thing to consider including at the end, of course, is departure from holy time. So a closing of some kind is often used. I encourage my own students to end their daily practices with a grounding, centering, and shielding. The closing can include specific words to indicate the end of your practice, the ringing of a bell, or another repeated signal that helps you shift from spiritual headspace back to workaday headspace. So let's talk about some tips and tricks for getting started or getting restarted. The first one is start small. Plan your daily practice to take less than 10 minutes, at least initially, and plan for your first action to be pleasurable, small, and easy. Then commit to doing just that one small, easy, enjoyable part every day. So you're only committing to this first action. So some examples could include a gratitude practice before you even get out of bed. Think of 3 things you're grateful for. Lighting incense while the coffee perks. Playing one particular song, artist, or channel while you get ready for your day. Design your full practice to incorporate activities that support your big why. But remember that the only part you must do every day is the first step. The great thing about planning a first, easy, enjoyable step is that most days we will do the rest of the practice once we've begun. So 90% of a practice is showing up, so make that part easier. Make it so easy that you can do it when you have a cold or when you're feeling terrible. This first step can frequently double as an entrance into holy time. And then choose a specific day. Make your launch day of your personal spiritual practice special. So there are usually some good options coming up. Look for the high holidays, check out the moon phases. For those of you who use numerology, days that work out to a number 6 can be wonderful. That's for balance. 7 is spiritual awakening. 9 days are enlightenment. And 11 days can be spiritual messages. So there's usually a lot of options in the calendar. So choose a very special day. Next, tidy up. As far as I can tell, most witches are either dragons or members of family Corvidae. We tend to hoard shiny things. This frequently translates to cluttered, dusty, overpopulated altars. Once you choose the day to begin your daily practice, get ready by completely clearing your altar prior to launch. Store or rehome items that are not currently serving your spiritual path. I'm not saying to go like full purge on your altar, but make sure that the items on it are ones that support you. This reinforces the pleasure principle. Clean, beautiful altars are inviting and enjoyable to practice at. Consider adding a new altar cloth, some fresh candles, or other items that will make your altar even more inviting. Remember that Goodwill and other thrift stores are great places to pick up inexpensive altar dressing. Next, use reminders. Set a calendar reminder or an alarm in your phone to go off. Put sticky notes on the coffee maker or on your cell phone or on your mirror so that you'll see them. Then, log your practices. Find a fun way to do this. I like to use a wall calendar because it's really rewarding to see how many practices you're stacking up. Draw a big mark on each day you practice or get hold of some awesome witchy stickers to mark your practices. It's a small form of rewarding your new pattern and it's actually a lot of fun. The next step, build in some rewards. So plan a reward for your first 7 days in a row of practice. Plan one for 2 weeks out. Plan one for a month out. And then plan one for 3 months out. And these should escalate in awesomeness, right? Maybe the first week's reward is something small, so a dessert from your favorite sweet treat shop or a new box of your favorite incense. Let your 3-month reward be many times that. Plan to go tubing or visit a museum you've always wanted to go to. Take a spa day or find another super awesome reward that you really, really, really want. Something else to consider, put together a team. Sometimes having an accountability buddy or a group can be really helpful. If you regularly practice with other people or have friends who are interested in working on their home practices, start a daily practice group. Choose the same day to begin your practice and share what you're preparing for it. Talk about how things went and what you're planning to do. Depending on geography and interest, you might make some of your rewards group outings of some sort. And then repeat. Repeat, 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 repeat. Practice makes permanent. Keep your big why in mind to help keep you motivated and climb back on the wagon if you fall off. Eventually, we all have a bad day, and that is totally okay. Try not to self-punish for it. Just get back up. Do the one simple, easy, pleasurable action, and keep going from there. Last step, revise. Adjust as you go. If you find that one part of your practice isn't working for you, change it. Add things. Your practice should support both your big why and your life in general. If you're moving into a high-stress part of the season, add more calming and mindfulness practices. If you find that you could use more grounding, incorporate more earthing practices. So, let's talk about sustaining your daily practice. Keeping a daily practice going requires the balance of desire, willpower, and life stresses. Identifying your big why and keeping it in mind can help. If a vision board, written description, or other visual cue that reinforces your which goal helps you remember why you're doing this in the first place, place one somewhere you'll see it frequently. You can also adjust your practice to include more pleasure anchors. The more enjoyable a practice is, the more likely we are to do it. So rather than self-punishing, work on rewarding the behavior you wish to increase. This can include all manner of bribery, mindfully eating one of your favorite chocolates, self-foot massage, luxurious scents and sounds. All of those can become part of your practice. Make the practice pleasurable. When something feels good, we pursue it. Consider the timing of your practice as well. Willpower is a finite resource. We burn through it all day long. It is much easier to make ourselves do something in the morning when our willpower is at full charge. By evening, it's sometimes all we can do to drag ourselves to the couch. If an evening practice is your only option, make that pleasure anchor really, really strong. Feel free to redesign, expand, or contract your practice. I like to cultivate a practice menu. So it's a few different kinds of practices that can fit my state of health, energy, and outside obligations on any given day. So one small, easy pleasure anchor that can be done quickly and even when I'm ill. So for me, that's lighting a candle. I can do that almost no matter what. A 5-minute practice that begins with the pleasure anchor. A 15-minute practice that begins the same way for days when you have more time or energy. And then a more open-ended practice that can take place on weekends or days off and can include many components. And it also begins the same way, right? That pleasure anchor, that first small step, that's where you start. And then you build from there. Remember, this is a spiritual Lego set. No matter what, we start with one Lego. However many others get tacked on can vary. It's okay to realize that something isn't working for you and to change it, to just chuck that Lego out the window. If there's a particular part of your practice that you have discovered is an impediment to showing up, pull it out. The last thing you want to feel is dread around your daily practice. So, let's talk about how to know if it's working. Your daily practice should support your life. In its most basic, simplistic expression, the days when you perform just that one small part, you should feel slightly better through that one simple action. On hard days, that's enough. But the benefits of practice include the way it strengthens particular skills, capacities, and connections. A successful practice will result in a better frame of mind immediately after practice. That better frame of mind may last several hours or all day. Including a meditation section in your practice, specifically mindfulness meditation, can be particularly helpful for people who struggle with anxiety or depression. Holla! Over time, our practices increase our sense of connection to the powers as well. This may include messages and visitations, both in practice and outside of it, so while dreaming or exercising, for example. Successful practices increase our skill sets over time as well. If you close with a grounding, centering, and shielding every day, you will soon be able to ground, center, and shield in a matter of seconds. If your practice includes journey work, your ability to get into and out of trance and have productive journeys will increase. Keeping a journal or otherwise tracking practice can be really helpful in terms of observing changes over time. It's normal to wrestle with new techniques. Being able to look back and reflect on how once difficult things are now more accessible is very useful. It helps reinforce this positive cycle you're creating. So let's talk about when to change or to add on. Repeating rituals appeal to the security-loving inner child in us. Most of us have a set pattern of things we do in a certain order every day, and we don't like to change it or disrupt it. Daily practice can fall into that same category. However, we never want our daily practices to become boring or something we go through on autopilot. So, cues to change your practice. If you dread it, or dread specific parts of it, change your pleasure anchor, remove a section that isn't working for you, and add more enjoyable parts. If you're just not feeling it, if you feel like you're just going through the motions, it is time to change your approach. Revisit your big why or empowered witch self and see what's shifted. If you're not being challenged, there should be some area of your daily practice where you are stretching. If you are adept at all the sections of your daily practice, switch one out with or add an area where you are still learning. If you feel overwhelmed or out of your depth, you do not need to immediately become proficient at all of the things at once. Scale down. Focus on building one skill at a time. Start with a pleasure anchor and add just one other part. And I personally vote for grounding, centering, and shielding if you're not an adept at that yet. And then, of course, let's talk about falling off the wagon. Sometimes, no matter how well we plan and prepare, life throws us a nasty curveball. Maybe we end up in the hospital or suddenly have a dramatic change to where we live. Maybe we wrestle with mental illness and go through a period of time where the invisible demons have an upper hand. Falling off the wagon does not indicate a character flaw, a lack of desire, or incorrect practice. It just means you fell off. It happens. If that occurs, meet yourself with love, gratitude, and acceptance first. A huge part of retraining our brains involves recognition and readjustment. If you become distracted 100 times during a meditation practice, congratulations! That is 100 times you noticed you were distracted and returned to your practice. The same principle applies to falling off the daily practice wagon. You noticed! You want to do a daily practice. That's wonderful. Feel gratitude for your spiritual tenacity. Love your devotion to your spirituality, especially in the face of that crazy roller coaster of culture that we all live in. This is good. Return to the planning and visioning part of building a practice. Maybe you need a different anchor. Maybe your life has completely changed and needs a different support. Maybe you just need one small, simple thing to do every day. Maybe you just need to find that little pleasure anchor. Figure out what will work best in concert with where your life is right now. And then set a return to practice date and prepare for it. So if you realize that you fell off and immediately want to start up your connection again, absolutely feel free to take a micro meditation. I love those. Close your eyes and breathe deeply for a couple minutes. Light a candle, something simple. However, in terms of restarting your practice formally, plan for it again. Think of it like warming up before running. So thank you so much for joining me today. If you have any questions at all about the contents of this class, I invite you to email me at glasswitchcottage@gmail.com. I blog weekly. You can find that at glasswitchcottage.com, and I always love to hear from people. So I hope we connect. I wish you a fulfilling, joyful, pleasurable, and nourishing daily practice. Thank you so much for joining me today.